Click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.
3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasing the Racing, episode 98. And we've got the returning Steve Brogan, one of our first ever. I think it was episode 6 or something. Baywatch Brogan,
and he's definitely the paddock's favourite TSB.
TSB.
My thieving scouse bastard.
the first episode actually started. Do you know what? The amount of people that actually fully believe that story, because it got like a good few minutes in. For people that haven't listened, like Steve started the first podcast by talking about getting into racing, pretending that he used to steal bikes.
Pretend, Chrissy.
And that's how getting chases off the police, and that's how he got into racing. And obviously, it was just a joke, but it was like a full. Like, I think you sold a few people down the river there.
Did I tell you? I don't know if I mentioned this on the last pod. I actually said that when I was doing it was like a motivational speech, but it was to a big haulage company at Silverstone, and there was about 600 people in the room, and that was me starting line, because I just thought they're all just going to think, "Wow, how have we got a scouser here?" And because obviously, as you can imagine, over the years, the amount of shit I've had, watch your watches, guys. There's Brogie, watch your wheels. That's the first thing I get, so I'm used to it. So
I hit a nerve there straight off the bat.
But do you know,
it's all right.
The three,
well used to it.
The three of us are sat here, all chests pumped up and like out of breath a little bit.
What are you on about?
Brogie's just had us doing joined the 100 club, so a little 100. What was it? Chest press on the
bench press,
and it was timed.
It was featherweights, just featherweights.
And I've got to say, Brogie absolutely smashed us both, annihilated us.
Well, he set the bar, didn't he? He set the competition. It was barely 5 minutes of walking through the door. Lads, you want to do this? I'm like, oh, he's obviously going to be good at it. But I'll tell you what, we're going to name drop. You had Neil Hodgson do the challenge as well.
The flop man.
Was it Neil Hodgson? Yeah, it was Neil Hodgson. There you go. So how did he fare compared to us? Because we were useless.
He was not as good as I expected. That's why I sort of said, let's have a go. Get on here, do 100 as fast as you can. Now you can have a breather whenever you want, and yeah. It wasn't as good as what I thought it was going to be. Well, slot man.
We saw him on the telly last night. Now, obviously, we're going back in time here now because this is going to be released later on. But we watched the MotoGP last night, and on the telly, my God, he's looking thin-minded, isn't he? He's never been a big lad, any stretch of your imagination, but he's there.
You don't want to tell him that. He'll be deflated if you tell him that. He's looking thin.
He looks lean. He looks healthy.
Yeah, he is.
Real healthy.
He's through this recent lockdown, he's been doing loads of walking. Where he lives is just in the middle of nowhere, so he just gets off and goes walking to get out the house and break the day up. So, but he's like Neil is, he's like obsessive with anything he does, and I know he was like this with his training when he was racing back in the day. But so he'll go walking, and he won't just do like an hour walk and that'll be your exercise for the day. He'll do like 20-mile walk in a day, but he'll have his earpods in and do all phone calls, and I know he's been listening to a few audio books and stuff like that. So
I'm big into them at the moment, like, because you just don't get the time to read, do you? Sit down and read, where if you like, say if you're walking or driving, you can, like, I went down to Colchester Kawasaki like maybe a month ago or so, and I did Johnny Ray's book there and back. It's like 11 hours his book, but it just kept us company all the way, and smashed it out in like 2 days.
Chrissy, do you know on Audible, right? So I've only listened to one book on Audible.
What book's that then?
It was what was it called? You put me on the spot.
A memorable one then.
No.
Is it an autobiography?
No. It was
it's like
it was a mind management. It was called
The Chin Paradox.
Mm-hmm.
Any good?
Really good.
Yeah,
like, right. I don't read many books, but I got recommended to read this one, and tells you a little bit about how your inner chimp works and all the rest of it.
I love that book, and I think for bike racing as well, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. And in scenarios when you really need to control yourself. But anyway, sorry, my question was going to be, you said you just listened to Johnny Ray's in such a short space of time. Do you turn the speed up so they're like, and your mind on the chin comes up?
No, it's
because I tried to.
Are you trying to turn it scouse?
Someone said to me, somebody said, "Oh yeah, you can just turn the speed of the talking up and listen to it faster." So I turned it up and was like,
you can
and
go like,
your head's going like chimps and pansies.
Yeah, you can do like 1.5. But do you know one thing that I've just done Shaky's book, and one thing that
Any good?
Yeah, really good. One thing that I really appreciated about Shaky's book was Shaky actually narrates it. So when he's talking about all the stories and the experiences and stuff, you're listening to him talk about it himself.
Right.
Where, like, say, Johnny's book, I think he does a little brief bit in the beginning, but then there's somebody else talking through it.
Oh,
which
okay.
sort of, I don't know, some people might prefer that, but I did prefer actually listening to Shaky talk about it. I thought it was really good, and it's well worth listening to. Now, there will be some people that it's funny because when we first started the podcast, there's people that still listen to every podcast every day. So if you go through the stats and stuff, so people will be listening to the podcast we did like 2 years ago now, but they'll... Obviously, our audience is massively grown, so there's lots of people that will be listening and watching this that maybe aren't familiar with you. So we're not going to repeat the podcast, but do you want to just give a quick overview of your racing career and what you like, the main parts of what you achieved?
So my race career was spread over 20 years, predominantly in British Superstock 1000 Championship. And the reason for me staying in the Superstock 1000 Championship so much was because I had a couple of opportunities to go into BSB, which I did. Not for the top teams, the likes of your GSEs or HM Plant, although I'd done a couple of one-off rides for HM Plant, only when riders were injured. But I always rode for lower tier teams, sort of privateer teams, if you like, and I always preferred to run at the front in Superstock, and racing each weekend, knowing you got a chance of winning or getting on the podium at least, as opposed to riding for a privateer team in BSB and you're battling for the top 15 or to get in the top 15 would be a good weekend on them bikes and with the team with that infrastructure and budget and stuff like that. So that was so mainly Superstock 1000. I've done a bit of Super Sport, a little bit in BSB, as I said, starting in my early days, Super Teens and Aprilia Challenge, a bit of club racing, obviously at Aintree just down the road here.
And that Evo class, when that was part of it. Well, the rules that we've got now in BSB, that was kind of it tried it out.
Yeah, we were like the test goats, if you like, for the electronics that BSB use today. The Evo Championship was literally essentially all the privateers teams, given the Motec ECUs and the electronics that they're allowed today. We were the test goats then, but so we were racing against all the other lads who had the Magneti Morelli and all the Pectel and all the other top electronics with all the bells and whistles on, and we had nothing basically. So Stuart used us to sort of, which was brilliant. So we didn't complain because it was a championship within a championship, if you know what I mean. And it was brilliant. I enjoyed it. It was the first year of the BMW S1000, so I don't think BMW UK were too best pleased though, because they'd spent years developing this BMW S1000 with all these bells and whistles, electronics on, and the first thing we had to do was rip it all off and put this basic standard Motec ECU on had no traction control, no nothing.
Looking back, there was actually some really good teams in that Evo Championships. Can you remember WFR? There was the Split Lath.
That was Lowe's and Gowland and all that.
That's it, yeah, and Westy and Split Lath, Aprilia. Yeah. Tim had a team in with the KTM at one point, I believe. Tim Walker, Redline KTM. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what there was. Obviously, yourself on the BMW.
BMW.
Whatever happened with the WFR team?
I believe that their background was cars, so they were big into car racing, and they had massive units somewhere near Silverstone. So I think that's true. Anyway, they employed loads of staff. They had 2 big Arctic trucks, and loads of staff and
it's one of them teams that
budgets.
sort of appeared in BSB were doing really successful. They had 3 bikes at one point. Obviously, that was Alex Lowe's first real step in superbikes, and like where he impressed, because even in the Evo class, he was still in the overall championship. He was getting front rows and things. And but then was there not a story where did they not try and sign Alex up on a long-term management deal, and he then went to Nick Morgan?
Yeah, I think that's what. Obviously, they could see Alex's potential, and they tried to tie him into a long-term contract. And I don't know who Alex was being advised by at the time. They advised him against it, which obviously was the best thing that he could have done. So he didn't sign. But anyway, for some reason, I don't know whether they went into liquidation or something like that.
That's what I heard, yeah.
And that was it. The team was dissolved, but it was a big team, big effort.
Speaking of your career highlights, obviously there was a few championships along the way. Do you want to just reel off the championships you won?
Yeah, probably. I mean, starting from my younger days, Super Teens was 125s, and it sounds like nothing when you sat here, but when you're 17 years old, that's British Super Teen Championship, all Aprilia 125s was like one of the main championships as a kid, to win. And as you had Chris Burns in here, he was one of the top riders that I was against, and I think he won it in 96. I won it the year after him, 97. Then 99, I won the National 600 Championship, which was effectively like the teacup race of the British Supersport Championship. So there was that many riders apply, got an entry for the British Supersport. There was like 40 riders that didn't qualify. So obviously, when I first stepped up onto a Supersport bike, I could never qualify into the main 40 British Supersport race. So it was called the Shootout, the 600 Supersport Shootout, which was like a national championship. So anyway, I ended up winning that at the end of the year. So it was like the best of the rest, if you like. Then obviously moving forward, it was obviously the Superstock 1000 Championship was the main one that I tried to win for so many years, and for a few, I come really close on a number of occasions, and had the rug pulled from under my feet, should I say. But anyway, eventually got to win it in 2008. I rode a 600 in British Supersport the same year as I was riding a Superstock bike, and then obviously 2 years later. Sorry.
Was that the same year as you won the stock? You were also racing this Supersport as well.
Yeah.
And
I don't think I ever told you this, Chrissy.
No, we did.
Go on, you know what I'm going to say, because I used to say it to you all the time. Every time we used to go to Thruxton.
Steve won the Superstock and the Supersport race in the same day at BSB. I didn't actually realise it was the year you won the championship that you did both. So did you? You must have thought that was an advantage then, getting extra track time.
Yeah, definitely, because obviously Superstock 1000, as you know, we don't really get a great deal of track time. So I just thought, perfect, 2 bikes, double track time. Yeah, okay, you're riding a totally different bike. But unfortunately for me, that year I struggled with the electronics on the Supersport bike on the 600. And it was the throttle connection right from the very first test. Every time I cracked the throttle, it came in with such a bang. There was a big flame out the back of the exhaust, and the back wheel kicked from underneath me. All the unburned fuel in the exhaust, and I'll never forget Ron Haslam coming up to me, because obviously I was teammates with Leon that year, and Ron used to go out spotting Leon, and Ron was giving me some advice, and he said, bloody hell, Steve, be a bit less aggressive on the throttle on the 600 when it's on its side over such and such a corner at Cartagena. He said, it's coming in with such a bang, like you're getting on the gas really hard, it's going to have you off. And I said, no, that's me just cracking the throttle gentle, it's coming in with a bang. Anyway, that was at the start of the year, and I complained to the team about this throttle connection issue with the 600, and they never got it better for me all year. And I can sit here now away from here and hold my hands on my heart saying I'd give everything I could on that 600, but I was always like top 5 was sort of the area where I floated about on that. I won one race on it, which was the Thruxton one, which highlights the issue we were having. As you know, Thruxton, you're rolling onto every corner, so it's not like any real stop-go corners, is there? At Thruxton, you're rolling on, so obviously that throttle connection issue that I had was really ironed out because I was rolling onto each corner fast. And but I used to jump on the Superstock bike and be on lap record pace, jump back on my 600, and I couldn't. I was struggling to get in the top 5.
I had exactly the same issue with a few years ago. It was like a new model of a Kawasaki a few years ago. On the first, it ended up being the first few rounds we just could not do exactly the same issue where on the edge of the tyre you would. Do you know when you just want that neutral throttle?
You're talking about recently on the Morello bike, this on the ZX10,
and you kind of you're right leant over and you just try to get that neutral throttle, and once you've got that, you can then build up nice and gently.
Yeah.
There was no neutral throttle, so it's nothing, and then it would come in.
Yeah.
And
So
what it meant is you had to get the bike turned and start like getting it facing the right way and pick it up, and then get on. And it was really difficult to solve. But as soon as we did, it was you seen it in my results straight away.
Yeah.
And
So going back, it was frustrating for me, as you can imagine. I trained as hard as I'd ever trained, and for this one opportunity, it was like the opportunity of a lifetime to ride for the official HM Plant Honda team and be given 2 bikes to ride. So you can imagine me walking into the garage, I had 2 600s one side, 2 Fireblades the other side, and all these stuff. But I wanted to do just as good on the 600 as what I was doing on the stock 1000. But I was getting the feeling of disappointment every time I come back in the garage on the 600. I only had to look at the mechanics' faces. And I was told years later, after that, they knew what the problem was with it. I can't remember what it was. They said something, but it was something mechanically to do with valves or something like that. The reason why it was coming in with such a bang, I wouldn't have thought that. I thought it would have been a fueling issue or something, but I complained about it all year and it never ever got any better. And then ultimately, the biggest sort of dagger in the heart for me after that was I thought I'd done enough to get myself a proper superbike ride with the HM Plant team, and I thought I'd done enough. And Tuck said to me at the end of the day, "No, sorry, Steve, we don't want you getting on a superbike," because they obviously give it to Josh Brooks, which that year 2009 was when Josh didn't have the best of starts, let's say, with his visa issues, and then obviously the Mallory Park incident. And but I was after that seat that year badly, and I was pleading with Tux to give it to me, and he was like, "Well, Steve, we don't want to, after your results on the 600s with the electronics, we don't want you to have the same problems on the superbike." And I was devastated because I was like breaking lap records the same days on the Superstock 1000 bike. Won a load of races, won the championship, but the 600, they say that was what held me back from jumping on the superbike. And then obviously I've watched Josh over the years from 2009 to go on to see what he's done, and I just thought, if only I was given that one opportunity on that decent bike with the good team, and who knows. But anyway, looking back, I've got no regrets whatsoever of my race career. I got further than I ever thought I was going to do, back from all them days when I was stealing bikes on the fields and stuff. I'm joking.
You're not. I'll tell you what, you've missed a very crucial point for me. You're a roads man as well. You've dabbled in road racing.
A little bit. And
you can't just wash that off. This tarmac hair gel wanker. No one cares about that. Let's talk about the roads, my man.
Yeah, I know, Dom. As we were saying briefly before we got started, that I take my hat off to all you lads that commit to doing the roads and the TT. It's just, in terms of bravery, sacrifice, everything, just to put it all on the line, to, whether you finish last at the TT or you're winning, I take my hat off to you, because it's for me, my personal choice not to do the TT and to step back from doing the roads is all the elements out of my control.
Yes.
Example, the mechanicals, and your bike throws a rod, oil all over your back tyre, game over, good
rogue
night.
seagull coming across you.
Exactly.
Anything,
animals running out on the track.
And
for my personal experience, I had, again, HM Plant Honda team, was doing a Northwest 200 in 2008, Superstock 1000 bike, done the first lap of the race, come back onto the coast road, hit the brakes into the one of the last chicanes on the coast road, and the back wheel locked up. Naturally, I grabbed the clutch, and I was like, "What's going on?" I thought the gearbox is locked up. and went straight up a little slip road, and the bike was fine, and I was like, weird. Anyway, went to go forward, let the clutch out, it wouldn't move, back wheel was jammed on. What had happened? And again, found out a couple of years later, Honda machined their own rear sets in Louth, and apparently the bit where the rear brake pedal goes down and pushes the piston up into the master cylinder was a couple of thou out, and so it was pushing the piston into the master cylinder, so the back brake was binding. Now this is when there was the old Station Corner. I don't know if Station Corner still the same. Station, but Mathers is not the same, is it? Mathers Cross. The old Mathers Cross was flat out in like 5th gear.
Aye.
But they put a chicane there now. Am I right
which
in
is a
saying
shame,
that?
because I remember doing like my newcomers bus, and you think, we used to do this, and everyone on the bus is going, oh, how man, can we not do that?
Mathers Cross was like literally you just dab a little bit of brake, and if you, depending on your gear, and if it was really tall, obviously you have really tall gear anyway, you might have to come back a gear, but it was flat out, and I just thought, I was sat on the Supersport grid for the next race, and I just thought, if that happened to me at Station or Mathers Cross, I wouldn't be sat here.
You wouldn't know.
So I said to my mate on the grid that day, I said, this is the last road race I'm ever doing, because I feel lucky to be sat here now. And and as I say, I found out a year or two later down the line it was because of the back brake. But like, no one on the day, like, it was my life on the line there that day, and everyone's all walking around scratching their heads, and the team all, what's happening, and you know, the team manager, and I'm not going to name names and all the rest of it, but you know, things happen, but no one was holding their hands up and say sorry, or no one said, sorry Steve, like, this is what's happened, let me explain to you, just to get your head straight. And I needed that for me to continue. I needed to be told what had happened, but no one would tell me the true what had happened to that back brake, or how it had become, you know, lock up on me after.
Because that's in your head riding a bike, isn't it? If you knew
Exactly.
why what's happened, you think that's the problem fixed, and you put things immediately to bed at that situation.
Exactly the same as crashes in that respect, where if you know why you've crashed, you can just park it and think, well, I did this, I made that mistake, and therefore I won't do it again. But if it goes without you, I've had a few crashes in the past where I think, well, I did that the same. I've looked at the data, and it's such a horrible feeling, because then you've got to go back out, and you lose that sort of faith, don't you?
But even if that was like oil or something, like, you know, if it just snaps away from you, think, well, how did that happen? And it's like, it's oil. Exactly, you think, well, that was oil. But to ride like that, I totally understand your situation, 100% understand. If you're thinking, well, yeah, where's the trust? Where's the respect gone? Then that's what I want to know. It's like, screw you, lads. You know?
I felt a little bit, you know, as I was saying earlier to you, Dom, you know, I was at the Northwest 200, best team in the paddock, official Honda team, all the big flash trucks, best bikes, mechanics, all the rest of it. You think to yourself,
I'm unstoppable.
Almost felt like invincible, like nothing can go wrong. It's all down to you now. You know, they've got you here. And again, I was riding Supersport, Superstock, but I refused to ride the Superbike. Again, just my inexperience, let's say, on the roads. I wasn't confident enough, and they were having big engine problems in BSB with them. The engines were shitting themselves left, right and centre, so I opted not to run the Superbike in at the Northwest. But yep, on the flip side, the first time I ever went to the Northwest 200, I was 18 years old. I bought a transit van, a box trailer the same as this, and it had a little kitchen unit in, a bunk bed here, bunk bed that side. The back was cut into a little workshop. Bike went in the transit van, but there was a mega little workshop in the back door. You come in here and it was like 2 little beds and a little kitchen sink and stuff. And I was 18 years old, never been to Northern Ireland before. All I'd seen in Northern Ireland was on the news, all the troubles that they were having back then. So I was 18, I'd get in a boat from Liverpool over to Belfast. My boat arrived at 1 o'clock in the morning. I was absolutely shitting myself when I arrived over there. And obviously we didn't have like phones with, you know, I don't even think we had tom-toms then. So I was map reading, I'd had my road map out. I'd listed down all what roads what junction to turn off and all. I had my little list of. I was by myself. I was just going over there by myself, spanning them for myself and all this. I got there at like, I don't know, 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Parked up, got my head down in the trailer. Woke up and someone come out the caravan. There was a blue transit van, the caravan parked next to me, and lad comes out the caravan. Hey up! And I looked up and it's McGuinness. I'd parked next to McGuinness. He was like, What are you doing here?
I want my wheels back.
He was like, what are you doing here? I said, I've come to race. I've got an old steel frame 600. It was a fast Tony Scott engine, steel framed Honda CBR 600. Anyway, John was like, what? You come over by yourself to race? I was like, yeah, well,
What's
just
the problem?
only a couple of wheel changes, a few brake pads or whatever, unless I smash it into a wall. So, and fair play to John. He got stuck in that week and helped us with a few wheel changes and what have you. And that was back in the days when he had his blue transit van running on reds and stuff like that. Sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Of course, yeah. You can tell everyone if he's still doing it now. We'd still love it for it.
Yeah. Look, I think he had a little switch there that he flicked it onto the good stuff if ever he came into trouble. Well, I would know nothing about that. I mean, I'm all for putting a bit of red in, but I wasn't that clever I wasn't that clever to put a flick switch in and get it back onto the good stuff. So anyway, McGuinness, you're gonna laugh at John. He was funny.
Moses will be around knocking on his door.
Yeah, so that was my roads experience. But sorry, just going back to what I was just saying. What an unbelievable experience. The Northwest 200, my best experience of road racing. The Northern Irish people couldn't have looked after me any better. I was over there.
Oh, they look after.
Ian Duffus got me in with a family. I'm trying to off the top of me. Willie Henry and Kay Henry. It was a family run a dairy farm they had something like 500 cows or something. Anyway, went and stayed on their farm for a couple of nights with them, and the little boys used to get up in the morning, go and help the dad milk the cows, and it was just amazing. They just took me in under the wing, and we went to Kelly's nightclub on a Thursday night and got wasted.
The anger bar.
Yeah, woke up the next day and some young Irish lady was on my little bunk next to me. Like, how did you get there? But, anyway,
I wonder, Steve. I wonder.
But they were the good old days. But what an experience to go to the Northwest 200 and race a bike at them speeds, sample of Northern Irish hospitality. I've never experienced anything like it before or since, and I can only say if ever you get the chance for any young up and coming racers, it's got to be something you've got to put on the tick box and get over there and experience.
We're going to talk about it really in depth later on in the podcast, but like your coaching now, what would be like? Just a quick question: you're coaching people. Would you ever deter people from going road racing as your students, or would you just sit Good
question, Don, because not at all is the answer. I wouldn't never say to, and that's why I've just said, if ever any young rider ever wants to have the experience of road racing, go and try the Northwest 200. It is the best road race experience other than the TT, which I've never experienced. But yeah, I would never say to no one not to go. Don't do it, because of my reasons why I didn't do it is personal to myself. Now everyone's different. Everyone ticks, everyone ticks different up here, don't they? So, and hence why I've always said, mate, I take my hat off to you guys doing the roads at the speed you do. But yeah, it's everyone's personal choice and preference, isn't it? And it annoys me when certain riders, maybe later on in the career, which I'm hearing now, of going to do the TT or going to do the Northwest, and straight away people are like jumping negative on him. Oh yeah, well he's skint, he's only doing it because he wants a few quid. In my opinion, that's wrong to have that opinion of someone, to say they're going to put their life on the line, go to the TT or the Northwest, all for a few quid. Yeah, okay, that's a little pat on the back, getting a few quid for doing it, but ultimately, you're not going to risk your life for a couple of grand, are you? So it's the experience, in my opinion. If you're going to do it, go over for the right reasons, and there's no better way to get that pulse racing if that's what you're searching for, and have a buzz. The best fun I've probably ever had racing a motorbike is the flat out round the Northwest 200. It was unbelievable fun. Like, you're literally riding with a smile on your face and your helmet.
So why was why was the Northwest such a can-do event then, if you know what I mean? Like the TT was a no for you, the Ulster Grand Prix was a no for you, like the Macau Grand Prix, it's just interesting how a fair few riders like yourself, like high-end championship winning material, and they only just keep an eye on the Northwest. So why, in your opinion, is the Northwest acceptable?
It's almost a go-between.
No, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking anyone for that, but it's that psychological barrier, like, isn't it? It's like, I'll go do the Northwest.
I'll tell you why, Dom, because simply, and going back, from when I first chose to do the Northwest, which was 1998, it's simple triangle, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a 9.5 mile, triangle. It was relatively easy to learn. You couldn't forget what way you go on.
Left.
Exactly.
Left.
So the main thing you needed to learn was your braking markers. You missed them braking markers from flat out, you're in trouble. Whereas then committing to go to the TT is just a different level of learning and discipline and everything. But my reason for not wanting to go to the TT is what I explained to you before we come in here was I could never accept if you're on a lap record breaking lap, in the zone, and something happens in front of you and someone's bike blows oil all over the place and you're in no control. I couldn't accept that. So that was my personal reasons why I always chose not to go to the TT.
Yeah.
And it was only from when, as we said earlier, when Dave Jeffries lost his life in 2003, and I was battling with Dave in the Superstock Championship that year, and me and him and a host of others were racing at the front and winning races, and the way Dave's accident happened and the way he lost his life, and he was on a lap record breaking lap, doing nothing wrong, and that was that. And I got the phone call from my team manager that day to tell me, Jed, a guy called Jed Smith in Liverpool here from Lloyd's Autobody, the team that I race for, and he told me, and I was heartbroken. Dave was such a big character in the sport, in person. And for him, I've never really lost anybody close to me like that, friends wise. And it hit me, and then when I sat back and looked at it and understood how his accident happened, what was in his control, what wasn't, and I just thought, he done nothing wrong. How can it? So that was my personal reason anyway. And I'll say it again. I've said it twice, but to have the conkers on you to go and do what you guys do on any bike, whether it be the classic TT, Rider 125 or a superbike round there, hats off to you, mate. You deserve every penny you get.
No, but fair. And that the good thing is, you nail your colours to the mast, and I respect that. And I think everyone listening to the show, Chris, it's the fact that you know what you want to do, and I think that's such a valuable life lesson, period, isn't it? It's like, I don't want to do that. Simple as that. Leave it to it. But my God, I wish I saw you around the north now all the time.
Sorry, mate. And can I just say, you guys, what I used to hear back then in the day is, oh yeah, but on the roads you only ride at like 80-90%.
Do you bollocks?
That last time I rode the Northwest 200 was 2008. My last race was on a Supersport bike. I rode every bit as hard in that Supersport race to finish fourth. I think it was like a second off the winner. I can't remember who won. I think it might have been Steve Plater won it. There was a group of about 6 of us: Hutchie, Guy Martin, Cam Donald, and a few others. And Hutchie was on the grass at one point doing 165 or something flat out on a 600 there behind the bubble like that. And we're all like drafting each other. And there's a little grass verge. After the grass verge, guess what there is? A ditch, and then lines with trees. And Hutchie's on the grass, like dust kicking up, and I was scratching, like literally fine braking into, late braking at the end into all the chicanes and using all of the track. The lads were like taking chunks out of each other, and I was thinking, what happened to the 90%? Where did the 90% was left on the start line? I'm not kidding. They were giving 110% to it.
Good. This is good to hear. This is good to hear.
Remembering back, I think you used to get paid lap money as well. I don't know if it's the same now, but you get
paid.
The
Yeah.
Right, so I don't know if is it the same at the Northwest now?
I'm not
where
sure, no.
You get paid depends on your position
When you
on
cross
the
the
line, when
line.
you cross the line. So you can imagine
No, that's each
when you
lap,
got back
right?
onto the coast roads, everyone was just taking chunks out of each other. They must have been thinking,
Bonus.
I can't remember if I was back in the day, but everyone must have been thinking like, it's an extra grand. You're having it because it's a grand into the chicane. And if you didn't pass them on the brakes before the flag on that lap, you've just lost a grand or whatever it was. But, yeah, so it was hilarious, mate. Honest to God, I put everything on the line, and I loved the race. I come back, I finished fourth. Gutted I wasn't on the podium, obviously, but I come back that night. We all got pissed and had a good party and whatever. And I just remember just thinking, wow, that was a proper race. Like, and the coast roads are up and down Black Hill and all the blind crests and all that. And you come over Black Hill and the wheelies and you're hanging off the other side. And it's memories like that of the fun you have around there. But then are you prepared to
give up what you've got?
Sacrifice everything for that 1 hour of fun on the bike there. But looking back, it was amazing.
I can see you just
smile
talking about it. It's like lit a switch inside.
It is.
But you guys know what it's like. That when you're on the edge on the bike and you're in the zone, you're having so much fun. On a UK racetrack, say like Alton Park, when everything's going right and the bike's wheeling and it's hard to control everywhere. The Northwest 200 are such high speeds and you're timing the braking and on the coast road, the blind sections and all that. It's just, and the fans, like both sides of the track, it's just lines with people. You can see, and everyone's just all on the Guinness and just having a great time. The atmosphere, it's hard to explain, and hence why you see obviously Alistair Seeley goes there every year, and it must be extra special for him being Irish. But
it's the biggest outdoor sport event in Northern Ireland, isn't it?
No,
I should imagine so.
I would personally love to see you. I would love to have been there to watch you race, because it's great how you brought up the Alistair Seeley thing, because ever since episode 6, when we first had you on, we talked about that last lap.
Sorry, mate, are they free?
Well, yeah,
do I have to pay for them?
No, cool.
I thought you were never going to offer. I've got is it Gandhi's flip-flop? My mouth stuck together.
Well, it does say that on the Rich Energy label here. Will help with Gandhi's slip out of space. Absolutely class. But no, so I'm over the moon you brought up the Seeley thing, because this last lap, like, I never seen it. And Chrissy, like, we were doing this over Skype and there was no YouTube and everything like that. The good old days, gentlemen, the good old days. And Chris is like, have you not seen it? I can't. No. So anyway, he pulls up the computer while we're chatting to you, and I'm watching this when we jaw on the floor. It's you and you absolutely pinballed Alistair Seeley. And imagine, even before you mentioned that race, your style, your aggression, your sheer utter, it's only one word for it. Fuck it, I'm having it. It's just pinball. It's brilliant. Imagine that.
I think that's the biggest. That's the largest views that we've ever had putting a video on. I think I put it on Twitter, and there was I remember seeing 60 or 70,000 people watched it, because obviously McGuinness shared it and Scott Smart and everybody involved. A hell of a laugh. It came up on the memories the other day, and I shared it again because it is a great race. Even if you weren't into bike racing, you would enjoy watching that.
Yeah, it was. That was just a case of Alistair being kicking my ass week in, week out. What bike was he? He was on the Taz Suzuki, wasn't he? And I was on the Blades again.
And another top team as well, Paget's Rhodes team as well. So you've been for some serious calibre.
Clive's team, as much as I got my arse handed to me on a plate that year by Alistair, obviously the reigning champion, you think I'd won 10 races the year before, so I thought I'm going to win a handful this year. And obviously Alistair turned up and was just in the zone and was winning week in, week out. And obviously I got into the lead. I think it was the last lap I led. I passed him halfway out the back section, halfway around the last lap.
He passed you into Tower, and then you did him into the
on the outside on the flip flop, and I just thought, no, that's it. And then when I seen him come on the last section before the hairpin, he come up the sort of the wrong side of me and then close it. I thought, no, you're not having that, and let the brakes off, and obviously spanned it for both of us.
Did it ever get that season? Did it ever get nasty between you and Alistair, or was it like
not at all, mate? Not at
just
all.
a real
because you just towering over him with
No,
100,
like a healthy rivalry?
Yeah, no, it was. Don't get me wrong. You know, we'd say hello to each other, passing in the paddock and whatever. But like any rivalry on circuit, you're not best mates with your main rival, are you?
Why not?
In the nicest way possible, you hate them because that's the wrong words to use because it's a strong word, but you want to dislike them to make it easier to beat them. So I wasn't best mates with him by any means. He was beating me every weekend, and I wanted to beat him. And that's that race. I think
it was
the body language from both of us just showed how much he wanted to win it. But how dramatic of a finish could you get? So McGuinness wheelies over the line. McGuinness,
so you
my teammate, snaps the win off me. I'd finished second about 8 times to Alistair. John wins the race. Scott Smart's Ducati shits itself over the line.
Gloriously, mate. No,
Bellow
gloriously.
of smoke, and so me and Alistair gets the bike turned, and he out drags me to the line. So. And but I remember some of the Superbike lads just going out in the next race saying, "Bloody hell, Brogie, what a race!" And I think it was Philip Neal said something like had a go at me or something for like he's out of control, and I was just like, "Yeah, whatever."
You're damn right, yeah. Stay back.
Yeah. So, but Clive Padgett, while we're just on the subject of him, what manager and mentor he is. If anyone who's ever ridden for him will know, he's such a clever guy in terms of like I'd come in and I'd be struggling with a little bit of chatter or whatever on the suspension, the bike not turning. Well, Clive would be like, yeah, Steve, just try a little bit of this or a little bit of that, and he'd always tell me what he'd do. Whatever way he went, it was always a step forwards. It was always a positive move. But the main thing with Clive, you walk into his garage of a morning in the pits and all the lads, and he's like, "Morning, Steve. Morning, Clive. You all right?" Yep. And I won't repeat the what he would say to me every morning.
Man. Go on, man. How are you, man?
It's too crude. It's too crude. But
piss ups and press ups.
No.
that was Uncle Don.
It was. I won't say. It's a bit now. It's a bit too crude.
Don't be a shy
All I can say is,
man.
Clive was on the lads' wavelength. Let's just put it that way. So, but what an atmosphere he had! Everybody, you'd walk into his garage, you'd be like, "Well, the sun's shining. We're racing motorbikes, and what can be better?" And it was just like so true. Clive is just like basic and simple. You're racing motorbikes. It's sunny, and that was that.
He's beyond huge successful at the Isle of Man TT, but why is he hasn't been a full footing in BSB paddock for a number of years now? He's done like wild cards with like Connor Cummins, and he's done the occasional thing, but when did Padgett stop being that high level, like in the BSB paddock, like putting that effort in? Not high level
stock team, wasn't it? But he's mainly focused on the roads.
So for example,
but even now he's
for example back then. In 2009, I was actually contracted to the HM Plant Honda team to ride for them for another year in Superstock.
Yeah.
But that was when the recession hit, wasn't it? If you remember right. And so Honda kind of subcontracted me to Clive. So I'm guessing must have given Clive whatever the budget was to run me in the HM Plant team, and said, "Steve, listen, you'll have to run in Clive's team this year because we've had cutbacks and have to lay mechanics off and that type of stuff." I was like, all right, fair enough. And the bikes are the same and this, that and the other, but you'll have different mechanics. You're going to run in Clive's colours and all that. And I'm not just saying this, but I had more fun in Clive's team in 2009, even though I got my arse kicked every weekend. I had more fun in his team just because of the environments that he created. And I was riding just as hard as I was the year before when I was winning, thanks to Alistair Seeley. But it was good. It was good racing.
Now, when you stopped going to the Northwest, this is before you worked with Clive in BSB, is that correct, timeline-wise? Did you stop the Northwest at that point?
2008 was the last time I rode to the Northwest.
And then 2009, that was your first year with Clive?
Yeah.
Do you reckon the story would have been different if you went to the Northwest with Clive? No, just bouncing an idea off your head.
Well, yes. For the simple fact,
if that situation didn't,
I know Clive's bike preparation for the roads would be a bit different than maybe how the official Honda team prepare their bikes, and I know. I don't know. I don't want to sit here and I'm not bad mouthing nobody.
I'm not asking to bad mouth anyone. It's just what's interesting is it's like that one scenario with the caliper, like woke up that realization of going, it's not for me. This is out of my control. Fair enough, 100%. But when you've got an icon like the Padgett family, it's just interesting.
You look back at Clive's and the Padgett, the whole Padgett team. Of the success on the roads, and look when Hutchie won the five in a week. You don't win 5 TTs in a week by pure chance, because as you know, Dom, the TT is it's man and machine, but a lot on that machine has got to be right, hasn't it? There's a lot of things that can go wrong on the bike in terms of just bits breaking or falling off, rattling and whatever, and whatever Clive does in his and their team preparing their bikes, they obviously do something right, don't they?
There's a special something that happens in that team and it works. It's just a man of your talent. You know what I mean? It would have been very interesting if life was a little bit different world for Steve Brogan. That would have been Steve Brogan on the Padgetts.
I've no regrets, mate.
No.
But even with the HM Plant Honda team, I enjoyed it. It was a brilliant experience. And
now, obviously, we've talked quite a lot about your career so far, and there's after the sort of Superstock days and those sort of glory days of like winning the championship and whatever. There was a good few more years before you actually hung up the leathers and went into team management.
Yep.
And there was a kind of crossover period where you ran your own team and you were racing yourself, but you also were it was your team. Do you want to just quickly go through that, and like when you went from after winning the Evo Championship going into setting your own team up, and how that was?
So obviously we'd done the Evo Championship, then the Jensen team stepped up into the main BSB class and got all the fancy Magneti, Morelli electronics, but they never had anybody to operate them, so it was a waste of time. So again, got my backside kicked, and the bike was brilliant. It's probably the best bike I'd ever raced. I had all the bells and whistles on, but I had no idea with electronics. I didn't know how to operate it. I could come in and say, the bike's holding me back a bit too much there, or it's not, the anti-wheelie's on too much, it's pulling me back too much on the straights and this and that. But they had no one to operate it, to fix to input anything in. So it was a waste of time. So naturally, again, I went back to Superstock 1000. I had a little spell with the Bill-based BMW team. And then 2013, I was back to running my own team from my garage at the side of my house. Back to Mercedes Sprinter job with a pop-up on them, and thankfully Kawasaki UK supplied me with a bike and some spares and stuff like that. And but that was my last year racing, 2013, and I had the best of everything basically. I had the latest ZX10,000. I had all the tyres that I needed, a good mechanic, enough spares, enough budget in case the bike crashed. There was no excuses basically. But I had a little knock on the head the year before in a qualifying crash on the Bill-based bike. Somebody pulled out of the pits at Brands going into paddock, and I come over the start finish flat out, hit the brakes into paddock on a qualifying lap, and someone come out the pits, never looked over the shoulder, and I literally missed them by that much. But I didn't go straight into the gravel ahead. I turned the bike a little bit, so I was at least going down the hill a bit, but I was going to run off the track. So I picked the bike up, run through the gravel. As soon as I hit the gravel, straight over the handlebars, knocked my head. And I must have been knocked out for like literally 5 seconds, something like that. Jumped up, I was fine physically. Goes back to med centre, get me all checked out, and doctor said, "Hi Steve, what track are we at?" And I was like, looking for signs around. So, I was like, don't know. He said, "What day is it?" I was like, don't know. But almost like I wasn't really that bothered, the fact that I didn't know the answers, because I knew I'd be all right, and they were just simple questions. And Tegan, my wife, was stood behind, holding Ben, my son, And the doctor said, is this your son, is it? And I said, yeah. He said, how old is he? And I was like, don't know. And with that, I just burst into tears. I feel emotional talking about it now. It hit me because obviously I knew how important the question was, and the fact that I didn't know the answer. And I didn't really understand how much that one question impacted me until a year later. And when I was racing, as I say, in my last year, 2013, on the ZX10, I was putting everything on the line, what I thought was on the line. But I was always about half a second, 0.6 off. And as you know, Chrissy, if you're half a second off in stock thousands, there was one time that year, I think I was like 0.7 off, and I was 19th on the grid. And I was like, and I was just sat there thinking, what am I doing? It's game over. Ship's gone, you know. So then obviously, everything that I built up that year, we, you know, got a nice little setup on an awning on the side of the van and all the rest of it. And then, so I thought, right, I had a good sort of few sponsors around me. So I thought, well, I've sort of learned too much just to throw it all away. I want to put a bit more back into it. So expanded a little bit, got a bigger truck, and got the services of Adam Jenkinson and Victor Cox to come and ride for us and compete in Stock 1000, Kawasaki team, and everything was all done. And as per usual every year with me main sponsor, which was Direct CCTV, based down in Dartford.
For a Scouse lad, what a sponsor!
So, well, here we go again. And
you're the perfect advert because we caught you, Steve.
Exactly. So, yeah, every year we just do a handshake deal, you know, like agree whatever the deal was and how much, you know, paid whenever, and we just shake hands, and that was that. And it was always good for the money and good for his word, and if anything, he always done more than he was originally saying. So I shook hands on the deal and all the rest of it, and everything was all in place, and we got a new workshop, and I literally renovated the whole workshop and like made it all safe and secure. Got Kawasaki delivered us 2 brand new ZX10s, got them all built and prepped. We went and done a test over in Almeria in Spain. Everything was brilliant. The team atmosphere was great. Me, Adam and Victor, we drove over in the van with the bikes. A bit of kind of team bonds, if you like, on the way over there, just to sort of get the banter going. And so the mechanics flew over there to Spain, and then we flew home. Me and Adam and Victor flew home, and the mechanics drove home. So just to share this, so the mechanics didn't feel like they were being treated like donkeys, if you like. So, but yeah, what a start to the season. Like, the test was really good. The lads were flying. The bikes were good. We were on Maxton suspension, so we had Richard over with us. And everything was just brilliant. It was just the perfect start to the season, although the money was a little bit slow coming in, so it was a bit of a concern. But I always knew, you know, the guy who I was dealing with, it was always good for his word. Anyway, as we were getting into the races, the money still wasn't coming in, and then all of a sudden I was having to run accounts up, and based on trust and this, that, and the other. And, yeah, anyway.
Slippery slope.
Exactly. And the long and short of it was, I think the company lost a big deal with Amazon. A lot of business they used to do with Amazon. And all the directors from the company said, no, we're not putting no more money into the race. And then that was that. But I was being told,
it was coming.
You're going to get X amount by such and such a date, and never come. To say I was broken hearted is an understatement. It was like, what myself and my wife Tiga put into that team, running that team that year, for the lads, and obviously because I knew I had the two lads' careers in my hands, and I didn't want to let them down. I didn't want to let any of the other sponsors down, so I wanted to keep everything going, and done everything I could to keep them going. And in the end, you know, the lads just said, listen, we're going to have to leave it, because we had so many spares in the truck to go for a few crashes, but if we had a decent barrel roll or something,
that was it. Yeah,
we were knackered. And I said to the lads, you know, if the tipping point for them was, like I said to them, it was like round 5. Guys, if you have a crash from now on, it's on you. You know, I haven't got no more resources to sort the bikes out. And at that point, they just said, well, let's call it a day. And I was in tears again, you know, because it was like, it broke me emotionally because I put so much into it. I knew the lads were gutted, but I felt like a letdown to them. And it was something that I really enjoyed while it lasted. And I would like to do it again in the future, because I feel like all my passion and my knowledge that I've gained over the years of running myself in teams, you know, I've had to run myself for Super Stock Thousands, and we finished second in the Stock Thousand Championship in 2007, running my own little team out of a pop-up awning sprinter at the side of my garage of the house against the WFR team, who had two big Arctic trucks, X amount of bikes, loads of staff, and it was just me and two of my mates that I used to pay over a weekend to come and mechanic for me. So I definitely felt like I wasn't ready to stop as a team manager and mentor back then. So obviously the team folded. That was the rest. That was the end of that, and I was like, right, what do I do next? Which then obviously we had to sell up all the assets of the race team to settle all the bills and stuff, and then it was like, what next? So hence when I went into coaching. And
we'll come back to the coaching, and I also want to touch a little bit about like sort of life after race and that sort of period of time. But just something that you just touched on it before about the thing with the kids and the crash, and how that you felt that sort of was a bit of a turning point, and you kind of knew the ship had sailed. It's very difficult for riders that are racing currently. You can't really get an honest answer out of them about the chain, having kids and racing, because obviously they're not going to, when they've got a team, a sponsor, they're not going to say, oh well, actually I don't go for as many risks or whatever. But so you're in a bit of a unique position where you've away from the sport now, so you can talk about it honestly. But my first question is, so do you what was it that you felt that sort of changed about the kids and having kids? And also, how do you think people like people who make it work, like say Johnny, and like, you've got plenty of friends who have kids but seem to make it work?
There's a lot of family.
How do they manage it?
Good question, because obviously you've got one end of the scale. You've got Jonathan. Let's look at Jonathan Ray and use him as he's your role model dad, if you like, racer dad, because he's got his two little boys, which are similar age to my two boys. Johnny's obviously off around the world, and I know, because I speak to Johnny quite a bit, the main thing is for him, he misses his kids when he's away from them and his family. But in terms of motivation and stuff, I know for him, his boys are his motivation. A lot of what he does, he does it for them, and he uses that as a motivation, having his kids and wanting to do well for them. And as I say, I think just the time away from his kids is the only thing that sort of does him a little bit. In terms of like the fear of crashing and stuff, I don't. Well, you can see from his results, it clearly doesn't bother him, does it? So, but I think it wouldn't bother you until you do have a crash and you're affected in such a way that it then bothers you, and you think of the possibility of what your life would be if or but or whatever, So everyone's different. I guess it goes back to like the TT question, doesn't it? Everybody's lives are so different, and if
we're all the same, it would be shite, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly, mate, exactly. And it's a hard one, because everyone's trying to find a balance in life with any dads or racer dads. Having your kids. For me personally now, I love being away from racing, and I value my weekends at home with the boys, taking them out on the bikes and to the skate parks, or whether the bikes are just on the TV of a weekend and the bacon butties are on the go and the coffee and the boys are jumping all over me and we're having a fight in the house or whatever. I love that now, being away from it and spending my weekends with the boys, rather than sort of the other end of the scale, if I was away from them every weekend. So I can understand that side of it, that that really hinders Johnny a little bit, being away from his family, because you miss your kids, but ultimately he's doing it for them, isn't he? So
if you don't mind me asking, how about your boys racing? Is that something that you want to see, or is that something that you just say you're more laid back than a deflated Lilo, and that's why I like you? You're like, everything's good. You're like, oh no, yeah, if you want to do that, I'll help you. You'd help. If they wanted to be snooker players, I can imagine you'd be taking them down to the pool club every night. But if they came to you, seeing what the dad's done, and what your wife, she's been part of the paddock for years as well, and you go, oh, actually, I want a piece of that.
Yeah, I would. And again, I've been asked a few times this, Dom, over these. So yeah, it's something that I don't want to push them into or whatever, and they've got a little bike, and if they want to go on it, no problem. But racing's not something I want my kids to do, only because I'd want, if they wanted to do it, if they come to me and was like, Dad, I want to race a bike, or I want to get a bike, and I've watched this kids mini bike club, I want to have a go at that. Well, they'd have to show me that they really wanted to have a go before I went and got them a bike for that particular, little racing club, or get them all the gear. They'd want to show to me. They'd have to
meet
show
you down the middle. That's what my dad did with me.
Yeah, they're not just going to say, Dad, I want to have a go at that. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, Benj or Brody, I'll get you the bike, and there you go. They'd have to want it. I'd have to see that, bloody hell, he really wants to have a go at this. Well, if that was the case, then obviously they'd have my 110% backing and experience to try and help them, get into it, keep them safe for one, and give them as many little tips, tricks of the trade as I possibly can. But it's not something I'm going to push them into. I'm open. Yeah. I'm open to get into golf or something.
Golf.
I think there's a bit more money.
I thought you were going to say football. Football players, they are.
If you want to play football or golf or something like that, something a bit less dangerous, say.
Mm-hmm. And getting on to the sort of life after racing, obviously, it's we're on episode 98, we've spoke to so many ex-racers, and there's always that period. For some people it's a few months, for some people it's years, but there's a period after racing where there's kind of a big hole in your life, which has been such a passion, and you're like, it's an obsession, isn't it? You spend all your weekends, all your time, all money, everything, and then all of a sudden there's that sort of big hole. How did you find the initial period after you walked away from racing?
Quite difficult, if I'm honest. Obviously, the boys were really young, were babies, and then all of a sudden, there was no race team. I wasn't racing. There was no race team. I wasn't going away every weekend, and I was like, "What am I going to do over a weekend now?" So I was kind of like, it really did hit me to the point where, for 20 years while I was racing, I was that focused and driven on racing and training and getting on the scales every other day, checking my weight and all the rest of it, and never really being able to kick back and have a drink whenever you wanted to over weekends or whatever. And I fell into a little bit of a slippery slope when the boys would go to bed of a night, obviously, when they're young, like 2 or 3 or whatever, and crack a bottle of wine open with Tiga watching the TV. And Tiga's not a drinker by any means. So, they'd open a bottle of wine, watching the TV or whatever, boys would be fast asleep upstairs. And she'd have like a little glass of white wine and sit there with the same glass all night. And before I knew it, that bottle had gone. Then there'd be another bottle cracked open. And then I'd go to bed like that, spannered after two bottles of wine in the night. But then it become a little bit of a habit.
Aye.
And I was drinking.
A bit of a buzz kind of thing.
Well, it was like I enjoyed going to bed like half cans off a like a bit of wine. Say a bit of wine, 2 bottles of wine. But it become a bit of a habit, and it was like 4 times a week. 2 bottles of wine, and I was like, obviously next thing I put weight on, and I wasn't training. Obviously I stopped training when I stopped racing, then I started drinking, so I started to put weight on. And I'm not talking drinking alcoholic drinking, just a bad habit. Like I'd be the first one to wake up in the morning before Tiger and be straight flat out with the kids doing the breakfast and
getting the jobs done.
Well, yeah, whatever, doing whatever was going to be done. I wasn't like hangover the next day. Is that an alcoholic? If you haven't got a hangover and you can drink 2 bottles of wine?
No, that's called good practice. No. Alcoholism, like it's pretty much you wake up and you're thinking about the drink.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I wasn't that bad.
No,
I've got a bit to go there.
Well, got a bit more.
I've got a bit of progress to go.
That's it.
So, but yeah, so I was just trying to fill the void, the buzz that bike racing gives you every weekend. And then I really, really enjoyed sitting at home watching. So obviously, Chrissy, when you guys were out there, and I watched MotoGP. MotoGP got a bit boring at one point, didn't it? And I sort of wasn't bothered if I missed watching MotoGP because you could always predict the winner, Marquez, all the time. And so I kind of stopped watching that. World Superbike was brilliant to watch. BSB is always exciting. So I was like glued to the telly, and obviously I know all the BSB tracks inside out, and you kind of know the teams and all the team members and most of the characters, and I was just glued to it every weekend. Would never miss a session. I was watching you obviously on TSL time and when I wasn't there and stuff, and absolutely loved it. But it was hard, mate. It was a hard void to fill of me weekends, and it's got better. I don't drink nowhere near as much as I used to when I first stopped racing. I'd say I'm just a social weekend drinker now, but I love just taking the kids out now. The boys are at such a good age, they're 6 and 8, and they've got BMXs, and we go to like the kids' little bike tracks and skate parks and stuff like that, and have a fight on the grass and stuff like that.
And it's really nice that you've managed to keep hold of the passion and obviously the skill set that you've got, and set up your own business now. But you sort of the leading to setting up your own coaching business, there was like working for other companies and whatever, and being able to use that sort of knowledge that you've built. It's your trade at the end of the day, isn't it? The
motorcycling is your trade.
Yeah, exactly. And it's weird, isn't it? Because like, there's not many people who can say. People say, if someone asks me, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" I'm a motorbike race a track day coach. Well, how do you become a racer track day coach? Well, because I'm
brilliant. I
raced pretty much professional from when I was 16 when I left school, and earned a living from it from when I was 16 onwards. Don't get me wrong, I had little jobs when I was in my late teens to keep me going in between racing and stuff, but I earned money from racing when I was 16 right through to when I stopped racing, and that was all I ever known, and I learned a lot along the way through the hard way of doing it. The only coaching I ever got was off Ron Aslan when I was 17. I jumped off a Aprilia Super Team bike onto Philip McCallan's Motorcycle City fully tuned Tony Scott CBR 600, and it was because I'd won the Super Team Championship. They let me race. Philip McCallan was injured, so I raced his Super Sport bike that same weekend. So I was riding a production Aprilia RS125 in the Super Team class that weekend, and a British Super Sport 600,
a high end one as well.
So I was trying to ride this 600 like in my 125 2-stroke style, and Ron Aslam got behind me because I think he was competing still at the same time, and he was like, "Steve, get that bike off the side of the tyre." He said, "You're running into the corners way too fast. Everything's grounding out on the side." He said, "How are you getting away with the lean angle on that 600 is beyond me." He said, "You're entering a corner much faster than him." So I'd gap him on the entry, but then from the middle of the corner to the exit, he was like that, right up my back. And he said, "I'm nudging you up the back," because he said, "I've got your bike's flat," because I was going in a gear too high. So I didn't have no engine braking, so I'd run in real fast, close gas, typical 125 riding style, freewheeling fast. Then when I come out, the bike was flat, and he was like a gear lower than me, and he was like ready to like the back up coming out, and I couldn't get my head around that for such a bit of time. And Ron was the only person who gave me a heads up on that one area, but to the adaptation from 125 two-stroke to the super sport, how to ride a super sport bike, I high-sided so many times trying to learn that I was coming out of corners and I was getting overtaken coming out of corners, but I was trying to get on the gas earlier in a gear too high with too much lean angle. So what happens, the back came round, let go, and just pinged me up in the air. And it hurt every time, every high side, as you guys will know.
There's not a high side that doesn't hurt.
You don't. It's weird. You don't really see that many high sides these days, do you? To be honest,
Touch wood, Christy, touch wood.
Not compared to back in the day. You'd see high sides going off every corner.
The unridables, the 500 two-stroke
exactly.
days.
But yeah, so I learned the hard way myself, and I just thought when I stopped racing, I thought that's all I know, and so many people could benefit from everything that I've got.
Get on, son.
Everything that I've got locked up in here. If I can translate what's in here now, I've learned it to people that need that knowledge to shortcut them to, from making the mistakes and ultimately go faster, then that would be a good way to go.
Knowledge is 100% power. Now, I tell you what, we were reading UK Club Sport, and Glenn Irwin actually, he very openly said, why pay a coach or a mentor, to come tell you how to ride a bike? And, that's a bit controversial for your trained mind, isn't it?
I read that because Chrissy forwarded me the article, because he said, obviously, right. I featured in it with him because I was Chrissy's coach, and not many people will know that I coached you for 2 years, didn't I, Chrissy? And to answer, it kind of bugged me a little bit when I read Glenn's argument in that article, because he was like, well, why pay somebody XYZ when you can just come to the likes of us and ask for the information and we'll give you it for free? Yeah, okay, I get Glenn's point. Don't pay. Don't be giving all your money to somebody when you can just come and ask for it for free. Yeah, 1 or 2 questions, great, but you're not going to have a personal coach there talking you through every scenario that you could, all the wrong things that you're going to do and shortcut you the fastest route. So, and it's not like, for myself personally, I've never gone out there touting myself about, oh, Dom, you okay? Do you need any coaching? I'll come and coach for you, and this is how much it's going to cost. Chrissy came to me when I was coaching over in Spain and said, Steve, I'm racing in Stock 1000. He said, you said to me, didn't you, I'm like a second and a bit off, or sometimes just under a second off the fastest. He said, I've hit a bit of a brick wall. I need to bridge that gap, but in terms of like bike setup and me riding and stuff, I don't really know where I'm going to get that extra second. Do you think you can help me? And if so, how can you help me? So I said, of course I can. So me and Chrissy we were working together, weren't we, with focused events on the track days, and Chrissy was living and training.
I was about to say, is this in Spain when you had years in a dirty caravan, whoring yourself out?
Chrissy was living in...
What a right good time over there.
Yeah, you were living the dream, weren't you? You were doing a bit of work and training and everything over there in Spain, ready for the season. So I said, obviously, yeah, no problem. So this is how I can help you. If you want me to go. So obviously then the next question, how much? And I'm like, in an ideal world, I'd like to go and do it. We're all passionate about the sport. I'd like to do it for free, no problem. But unfortunately, I've got a wife and kids that I've got to leave on them weekends across 12 weekends through the year, and some of them are bank holiday weekends, and I value my time with my wife and my kids. So I said, Christian, so I explained this to you, then I said that I'd like to do it for free because I like it. I want to see you succeed. I want to help you, but I'm going to need paying. So anyway, Chrissy was like, yeah, no problem.
Trade for trade.
I'll speak to my dad. We'll figure it out. And to make it happen, end up coaching Jordan Gilbertson as well, didn't I, in Superstock 600. and you basically split the cost between them and what have you. Anyway, it worked out great. And
Steve came in, it was a coach, but also it was the mission racing days, and so there was me and Jordan in the team, and I was stock 1000, Jordan was stock 600, and at the time I'd finished ninth in the stock 1000 championship the year before, and Jordan had finished, I think Jordan was about 20th in stock 600, and as well as a sort of coach, we didn't really have a sort of crew chief figure, so it was a lot more than just you're a lot more than just a coach that year, really, weren't you? Coach would be the name, but you were very influential in terms of setting the bike up, and it was a very influential role, and we went on to have a brilliant season race, and despite not really having much knowledge and infrastructure, were challenging the sort of the bigger superstock teams, regularly on the podium, and so that was exactly the jump that I wanted, and that's the conversation that we had at the start of the season. But sort of more impressively, it was Jordan's 4th year in stock 600, and the 3 years preceding that, he was mainly outside the top 20, and that year he finished 2nd in the championship. He was breaking lap records, lots of podiums, so he'd had 3 years of doing the same thing, and even more impressively, he was on the same bike as what he was the year before. They didn't do anything to that bike. So from going from like well outside the top 20, this is when I read that article as well. I think what Glenn was kind of not warning against, but he was kind of pushing away, was because there is people that would go around the paddock and they're like, you need me, and trying to sell themselves, and you've never been like that. And I think, to be fair, I think that's what he was talking about. But at the end of the day, Glenn's talking from a position where his dad is an unbelievably successful racer himself, and for example, when Glenn's younger brother Andrew came over and when Graham come over, Glenn's with them, he's coaching them, he's doing what you did for me.
Exactly.
But I don't come from a racing family. The first time we went to Cadwell Park, I never knew what any of them tracks looked like. We didn't know. I remember people teaching us how to bloody put tyre warmers on. It would literally clueless from the start. So to have somebody that had been there, done that, and it was exactly what I needed. And there's lots of things. Do you know if somebody who
writing a note? Sorry, I'm not being ignorant.
If somebody who didn't know anything, or who hasn't done it themselves, came over and said, you need to be in 4th there, and you can take that corner flat out, and you're like, oh, do you think? And he's like, 100%, you can take that flat out. If somebody's been there and done that, you respect that opinion a lot more. And and a whole range of things. It's not just pointing things out on the track. It's the whole package. It's advising how. I remember just little things like one morning I'd say get up and I'd say have tracky bottoms on. It would be, Chrissy, just stick some jeans on, just make yourself look presentable. Just loads of little things. Yeah. But it's making that full package about how present to sponsors, get the whole thing sorted.
So obviously I there's so many things.
That's some sales pitch for you, Stephen.
It is.
Cheers, mate. And listen, I'll sort you out when we get out of here. Going back to Jordan Gilbert, young 600 stock 600 rider, and when I started working with him at the start of the first season when I was with you, and I went out around the track watching him, and I think at first Jordan and his dad were like, what are we really going to get out of this? And you're paying somebody a good chunk of money to be there for you for the weekend, and you're thinking, well, is this going to be justified? And for me, it was like black and white. It was so easy to see the mistakes he was making. So goes around the track, and I was watching him, and it was Brands Hatch, Indy Circuit, round 1, and I'm at the start of clearways on the outside opposite the garages, and Jordan comes round onto the start finish, and bearing in mind I'm watching everybody else, so I'm seeing what all the other kids are doing on their 600s, and they're all, like if they're shutting off to change gear because they don't have quick shifters, they just shut off a little bit. Yeah, Jordan comes past, and he's the only one in the whole field doing it.
Clutching.
Like on a road bike, using a clutch, and I was like, what? I've never seen anyone on a race bike use a clutch to change up the gears in my life. So I comes back to the pit, and I said, George, are you using
I need more money off you, mate. I know how to fix this.
Listen, I said, you're using the clutch going up the gears, aren't you? And he said, yeah, all the yeah. I I said, mate, don't do that. That just takes it so much longer to change gear and much clunkier and stuff. So I said, don't use the clutch going up the gears, just use it going down the gears, nice and smooth down the gears, right? Let's just eliminate that, because that, round a Brands Indy circuit, is half a second.
It knacks your
all day. And there's not many gear changes around Brands Indy. I said, but, there's a few tenths of a second's worth there. Anyway, that was the level where he started at the start of the first round. And if somebody had told me at the first round then Jordan would win 2 races by the end of the year and battle for the championship, but finish second in the championship,
could have won the championship, couldn't he?
Yeah,
the last race of the season.
I'd have laughed, because the young kid that I was watching changing gears with using the clutch going up, and he was 25th or 26th position. He was a mile off anywhere near being
a front
at
runner.
The front. But once we started working with him, I could see the determination in him, the aggression and everything. And my job was to try and just control it and channel it in the right direction, and get him to use it in the right times of the right times of the session. So what I tried to do was structure the sessions for him and say, right, no, simple things like go out with a certain amount of fuel in, not fill the tank. His dad would fill the fuel tank up almost the start of a session. I'd say just put however many litres we need to, calculate what it's doing per lap. Go out on a used tyre and then pull in, and I'd try and time it, pull him in when everybody else was coming in for their tyre. So I'd get him on his new tyre first, so that he would go out on the track when everybody else was in the pits changing their tyre, and he'd get a good clear lap then, because that was half of the battle in Superstock, is trying to time your tyre change when everybody else is, when the track's quiet. Just little things like that, little tricks of the trade. But working with Jordan and seeing his progress was unbelievable, and I got great satisfaction. And also yourself, Chrissy, obviously, it's been so satisfying to see you go on to what you done last year, or even though I wasn't working with you last year, but having worked with you for 2 years and seeing the mistakes that you were making. And I want to say mistakes, they were just, wasn't really a mistake, it was just trying to change and adapt your riding style and get the bike up in different places at different times at parts of the corner to get the best out of it. And you're talking about bridging the gap of 3-4 tenths of a second a lap, and in a young rider's head who's never done it before, if you want to shortcut that little bridge, that gap, in time terms of 4 tenths or half a second, by having a rider coach, that somebody like myself, I feel like I'm blowing my own trumpet here, but I'm trying to justify where a rider coach like myself comes in for you to answer Glenn's criticism of a rider coach. So all you done basically was shortcutted the mistakes that you could have made, and I corrected you in a few areas, and taking nothing away from you. You done all the results yourself. You put all the hard work in, training, running. All I done was put a little couple of pieces of the jigsaw in, and helped you structure some of your sessions in certain times. And to say you've gone on to win the British Championship a year later, for me, sat at home last year during all the lockdown and watching TSL and all that, I was so proud to see you go on and do what you've done. And especially for your dad, because I know your dad really well and I've got a good relationship with your dad. I know how passionate your dad has been, and your dad's a bit like myself, quite an emotional guy and passionate. I was as chuffed for your dad as I was for you as well, to see you go on after the success that you did.
Can I just say, we had the year that you've just been talking about there, 2017, we had some amazing times. And one of the first things at the very first round, considering we didn't really know how the season, it might have even been testing, we didn't really know how the season was going to go. And Steve got me and Jordan together and said, right, when will, I remember him saying when, not if, when you both win a race on the same weekend this season, we're all going to shave our heads. Every single person in the team's going to shave their hair. And so it was like, right, deal. So we shook on it. And it got to Silverstone, right?
And Jordan, but let me just paint the picture. Jordan is a little Essex boy. No, Essex, is he? Essex.
It's the other side, but
West Sussex or whatever.
Yeah.
Southerner. And he's all like, hair was perfect. Nice comb over.
he used to go and get like a 40 quid haircut.
Oh,
from, like,
shut
a
up,
special-
man. 40 quid haircut.
Hair
Dom,
gel,
his hair, there wasn't a hair out of place.
yeah,
And he
Jordan.
shook hands on it that day, thinking, oh, well, I'm safe, because
I'm just going to roll.
back then, I don't think maybe he even thought that he was going to win a race, did he?
And anyway, got to Silverstone. He won his race, so got a.
He's looking at you.
Knockhill was his first one, so
Yeah.
he shaved everything off at Knockhill, and I finished second that day. I was like maybe half a tenth off Danny
Off the
Buchan for the
win,
win.
yeah.
And then at Silverstone, Jordan went out, won the race in the morning, and I led most of the race, and with 2 corners to go, took the front and crashed.
You
and
dick.
If I'd won that race, the whole team were getting the head shaved. But yeah, there was some brilliant times that year, and it was a very sort of family team atmosphere. Karaoke's on a night, barbecues. I'll give a special shout out to Russ and Nick and everyone that was involved with the team that year. And the Gilberts no longer sort of at the race, and now Jordan stepped away from the race, which is a shame. But they're a huge miss, especially to me and my family, because we spend a lot of time with the Gilberts.
Click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.
Going back to the whole pros and cons of coaching. So, as you know, I spend quite a bit of time with Hodgie, and he obviously manages Alex Lowe's and works closely with Alex and other riders that he speaks to in MotoGP. And I've had the same conversation with Neil about coaching and what does the rider coaches do for other riders in World Superbike or MotoGP. And he said Rossi has a rider coach. I don't know who he is, what his name is.
The Stig from
He
Tokyo.
has somebody out there spotting for him and doing stuff. Now, a rider coach at that level isn't telling him, get off the bike here, get off the, they're identifying the differences between you and the others and coming back and giving you that information. So,
Johnny Ray's got is it Marias now?
No, Fabian Ferre. Yeah, I think Fabian still works for him.
Yeah.
But anyway, Kawasaki have in the rider's contract, it's a must. They must have
They must
a
bring
rider
a spotter.
coach. No,
Sorry.
So whatever you want to call it, a spotter, rider coach. But there's XYZ's provided in the budget for a rider coach, and they've got to have it, and that's in their contract. And after listening to your pods with Sean Muir, and it was really good pods watching Sean, because obviously I've known of Sean and his team for years, and it was good insight into all the different years of his racing. And I dropped Sean a message afterwards saying, are his guys sorted with rider coaches and what have you? And he said the same. He said, I provide a bit of budget for the lads. The lads have both got the rider coaches or spotters, whatever you want to call them. And but he said he provides a bit of budget in their wages specifically for a rider coach. So it just shows at the level racing has got to now. You're talking on tenths of a second here and there, and if you do everything you can do possibly to prepare yourself right through the week, your bike setup's perfect, but you just want an extra set of eyes out there on a racetrack to see what you're doing right or wrong. It's a no-brainer.
Can I? I've just remembered this, and I must mention it. Do you know that race I was telling you about, the Silverstone race where I crashed with 2 corners to go? There was like a big build up to that race that makes it such an emotional time, and it was such a shame that I crashed, really, because basically the round before that, this was one of those moments that, do you know, when you really need somebody by your side, and basically what happened was I had one of the best rides I've ever had at Cadwell Park. It was Danny Buck and myself and Richard Cooper fighting for the win, and you know, it was such a proper scratch, taking chunks out of each other, and I rolled my socks. I finished second. Danny won, I was second, Richard Cooper was third, and after the race, the obviously the bikes get taken into the technical area, and my bike was fully stripped down, and I will just say before I tell this story, I'm not having a go at anybody at BSB and stuff. Everyone makes mistakes, but this is just the facts of what happened. When my bike was stripped, one of the things that they checked was the cam timing, and to check the cam timing on the BMW, there's a tool you put it in and you get everything lined up, all the chains lined up, and then there's a tool that fits on. It's a cam setting tool. It's the one that you set your cam timing.
Yeah, for top dead center, and it stops the time. Well,
anyway, when they went to check it,
sorry, it's a cam. You've got a cam timing setting tool and a cam timing checking tool. There's two different tools, isn't it?
Well, anyway, which
I didn't know at the time.
Yeah, so without preparing and getting everything lined up, they just went to try to put the setting tool on, and it wasn't going on because obviously they hadn't lined everything up. So therefore, it got announced that I was disqualified from the race. It was out in the press. All of Bike Sport News and stuff that I disqualified, lost my prize money, and all of my achievements from that year that we'd worked so hard for, there was just a massive question mark. And obviously everyone thought we were cheating. Well, we knew, but at this, can I just say, at this point, I knew that it was 100% a mistake, because that bike was staying in my garage and I was paying for all of the maintenance and stuff. So people were saying, oh, it might not be, people were saying, oh, don't worry, we don't think you're a cheat, but like somebody's done it. And it was like, no, I pay for every single bit that goes into that bike. I know I've had that engine since we bought it, and I knew 100% that cam time had never been taken. But everybody around us was saying, like, sort of patronising and saying, don't worry or whatever. So me and Steve went down to see Alan and the BSB things, and basically the scrutineers were just said, no, that you definitely are. We were saying, please seal the engine so we can't touch it, and take it and get it checked. We know 100% that that's a legit engine, and they're just having none of it. And I distinctly remember walking down. That's the worst feeling I've ever felt, because I've never cheated racing ever.
No, once you get a label, it's hard to shift
exactly.
in this game.
And I'm aware of what that means, that cheating label. And as we're walking down with, literally, I just felt everyone was looking at us as if I was
the same. So I'm
because you're a team
with Chrissy.
Once you're down,
I was there to back him through thick and thin, whether he stands on the top of the podium or we just on the floor
like that. Yeah.
So we both walked down to be told, you're disqualified, lads. You've lost your points, and I know I was trying to sort of fight Chrissy's corner, saying, well, can you please, like Chris said, take the engine, get it checked by a BMW official, and just get it checked that the bike is legit. No, sorry, it's being checked by the chief scrutineer. It's all done. Your points have been removed. Anyway, never forget walking back up the hill at Cadwell Park, me and Chrissy, and we were just devastated. He was obviously devastated. I could just see in his face, deflated, and I was deflated for him. And we're walking back up, and I'm not going to name who it was, but there was 2 people stood in the bottom pit of Cadwell Park and went, now then, Brogie, you cheating bastards.
That was it.
Said to me and Chrissy, now then, Brogie, you cheating bastards. And I think I just shouted something back, F off you or whatever, and just carried on walking. I said to Chrissy, right, listen, take no notice, mate. I said, leave this with me and I'll get onto it through the week, and I'm going to get this put straight. So anyway, as it happened, I was coaching the technical guy at BMW UK that followed that coming week at Silverstone, I think it was. So, and I'd coached him before, And I said to this guy, Steve, I said, Steve, do us a favour, mate. I said, we're in this situation, the engine's been checked out, something's gone amiss somewhere, it hasn't been checked properly or whatever, but we're 110% that this engine is legit. Can you come forward and explain how this needs to be done? Because Phil Crow, who done Chrissy's engines, was adamant, and it was him that pointed out to me that it wasn't checked properly using the correct procedure. So I said, right, okay, so it needs to go. So therefore, it then come out of BSB's hands and goes into the hands of MCRCB, which is Motorcycle Racing Control Board. So then,
right,
like a separate panel. So then,
that's good to hear. I didn't even know that fact. That's
a proper procedure.
That's
So it's not like Stuart,
internal affairs of motorcycling.
Stuart and his team, they do a great job in police and everything, but this was just a legitimate mistake, and so we wanted to correct it anyway. So they come forward. So the BMW guy, Steve Bellas, had to come forward and present the case, how the bike was checked and how it should be checked. So they take a statement from him, statement from us, and then obviously from the scrutineer how it was done.
Where is the engine in all this time?
Can I just say so that same engine we then took it to Phil Crow's. It cost $1,000 to put it back into the bike, right?
Yeah.
But then I was saying to BSB, look, it's exactly the same engine that I'm putting back in. So if you're gonna check it the same way, it's so important that you need to learn how to check it properly, because every round we're gonna get disqualified, because there's no way it is legit. There's nothing we can change. So we'll put the same engine back in, and I've never been as fired up for a weekend. Yeah. We got there.
All that done was just lit you on fire, didn't it?
It was pissing down in FP1, and I went out and I was over 2 seconds a lap faster than anyone. Richard Cooper did one lap at the end to get within 2 seconds, but nobody. If you look at that timesheet, there's people like Danny Buchan was 6.5 seconds a lap slower in the wet. And just went out, and I've never been as fired up. Anyway,
didn't that engine shit itself in FP1 in the wet?
That's strict.
So, but then everyone was talking even more. That was the engine. It shit itself. It must have been illegal anyway. So then we put an old knackered engine in, didn't we? One that was the horsepower was well down.
Can I just say? But then, because the judges from MCRCB were there, they had the chance to check the same engine again. So this time they used the tool properly, and it was obviously legit.
And this is the one shagged.
Yeah, but then they showed that if you didn't do it properly, like what they tried to do with Cadwell, that this tool wouldn't have went on. So the judges were kind of like, well, we've seen enough here, and therefore I got my points reinstated, and it went out that I'd got everything back, which was such a relief, because when you tarnish with that brush unfairly, there's an injustice there. Or even talking about it now, I'm like getting angry about it.
So up until that point, that weekend at Silverstone, myself, Chrissy, and the whole team were just tarnished as cheating bastards, basically across the paddock, especially in Superstock 1,000 terms, where I've been in that class for so many years, and I didn't want myself to be tarnished as a cheat, because I've never agreed with cheating, and been totally against anyone cheating over the years, and I certainly didn't want to be labelled a cheat, and so I was passionate about. And to be fair to Russ, the team manager, he put his money down, and
put £500 up for MCRCB to
protest. Yeah. So then that weekend, when we got the results of you reinstated, so you get your points back and all the rest of it, and like Chrissy said, it was just that weight off his shoulders of we're not a cheat, but still he had the fire in his belly then that weekend, and he just wanted to obliterate everyone. And he was so close to getting his first Stock 1000 win that weekend, and literally was leading on the last lap and crashed with 2 corners to go. I was devastated, but sorry, can I just and that night driving home, as gutted as we were that he didn't win the race,
we went for an Indian.
Me and Chrissy went for an Indian and had a little bee and whatever, and I never forget. You ever seen Mr. Bean? Where in Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkins, where he goes in his car and he's going down the street and he's going to everybody. I posted that on my Twitter feed, I think. This is to the people that called us cheats when we were walking back up the hill. I'm not going to name them because there's no need to, but it was for them to basically tarnishing us as cheats straight away. And when we got it reinstated, although Chris didn't win the race that weekend, for me, it felt like we definitely got a big win there.
But
and
just
it was nice to have that lifted off our shoulders.
You understand the emotions going into that race, and imagine crashing with 2 corners to go. If I'd won that,
what did you whisper in his ear before he went off down that road? After the qualifying, after everything, rolled up, it's pissing rain. You're like, here we go.
To be honest, that Chrissy had all the tools in his locker anyway. No matter what I ever said to him on the grid, was never going to make the difference to him, to his result. He knew what he had to do. All the work is done way before him lining up on the grid. The only things that I might obviously whisper in your ear, on the grids, is just be wary of this or be wary of that. Things, possibilities that, just obvious ones, not to be caught out short in this area or that area on the first lap or two or whatever. Don't throw it away by doing this or doing that, and just get your head down. But it was a good adventure, mate, wasn't it? And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed working with you for 2 years. I enjoyed the whole roller coaster of the ups and the downs with yourself and with Jordan. I'm coaching another youngster this year in British in Stock 600 Championship, a young lad called James Bull, who, from the sounds of it, is in a very similar position to what Jordan was in when I first started working with him. So there's a lot. There's a lot of improvement to be gained for him, and I'm really looking forward to the challenge with him to bring him from where he is to see how close to the front we can get him.
And also, would you like to obviously you run a separate business of your track day coaching and stuff? Do you want to give a good plug? And
for anyone out there that does track days, I mean, for me, doing what I do on track day coaching is, it's like it's so black and white. I can see from one 20-minute session following someone, I can see a crash before it's going to happen. So I can tell you one basic thing: do this or do that, or change this or change that to stop you having 10 crashes maybe in the future. And my sort of slogan that I use in my Superbike school business is invest in yourself before your bike. Well, it's a no-brainer. Whatever, if you want to shortcut your way to being a faster, safer rider without making all the mistakes and smashing your bike along the way and smashing you on the way, just pay for a bit of coaching, whether it be me or another top coach. There's other good coaches out there, albeit I would say there's only a handful of good coaches that actually know what they're talking about. And when I say that, I mean, if you're going to pay somebody good money for coaching on track, make sure it's somebody who's been there and done it, not just
experience talks in this game.
Not just an experienced track day rider, or no disrespect, but or one of your mates who's faster than you trying to tell you what to do. Pay for somebody to tell you the right way to do it and the reasons behind it to back it up what they're telling you, because the chances are that experienced ex-racer who you paid to have coaching with, they're telling you from experience because they've felt the pain of every high side or every tuck on the front, and
it can be done.
It can be done, and you don't have to hurt yourself. You can enjoy your bike and whichever circuit you go on so much more by investing that little bit of coaching, exactly the same as what you've done, Chrissy, with your 2 years of working with me coaching on a racetrack. But in track day terms, there's massive margins to be had. Sorry, I know I'm waffling on a load here. I coached a couple of club races, right, at Donington a year or two ago, and they were fast lads. Like, they had the top 1000cc BMW ZX10s. There was 2 of them on the same day come on my school, and I was on bog standard ZX10 with snotter X-race tyres of yours, I think they were, and standard exhaust but with a can, indicators, everything still on my bike. And these guys were like looking at my bike thinking, he ain't gonna fucking stand a chance here with us today, because they're like full super stock spec, and they're like top of Thundersport GB or MRO, whatever it was called back then. And I was thinking, right, okay, so we get started, and it was only whacking it again. There were only small margins of areas where they improved, because obviously the faster you get, the smaller the margin.
The window gets smaller.
So, but it was that being more precise in certain areas. They were both amazed at how much they'd learned from me in one day, and they're top club racers, winning club races like Thundersport. They couldn't believe, and they were like, Steve, how, like, and again, I'm not blowing smoke up my own arse, but they were like, how are you doing the lap times you're doing with us on a bog standard road bike? But for me, it's my trade, so it's expected. For me, it was nothing. As long as I've got good grip and decent tyres and the heat in the tyres, I can do it, no problem. And I've always said, the day that I'm not fast enough to show anybody around will be the day that I hang my leathers up.
Fair enough.
Is it, like, really quick question? A lot of riders like Lee Johnson, Dean Harrison, Christian Eden, a lot of them do track days with like Jamie Whittam. A lot of these top lads are doing that coaching element for more track days rather than race improvement. Now, a couple of people have told me, like, even riding a bike on the road, if you were still racing, would you be coaching? Because I've heard like coaching can slow you down, but you probably learn more about your own riding, but I'm just going to simplify the question. If you were still racing, would would it slow it down? Would it slow you down?
Yeah, there's an element to that I believe. If you're track day coaching and you're coaching guys in novice group and you're tiptoeing around Anglesey and Croft second, third gear and, you know, really, really steady, yeah, you kind of get stuck in a rut of going that slow, but then to literally flick the switch and go bang, BSB, race winning pace, it's like, whoa, like for me, and I can relate to it because I'll go from one session, I'll be coaching a real amateur novice in novice group where it's like second, third gear and they're just tickling the throttle all the way around, which is fine. Then in the next group, I'll be in the fast group and then I'll be coaching a top, you know, fast track day rider or a club racer. And then you're like, oh, all of a sudden you feel, I'm telling myself, bloody hell, wake up, Steve, wake up, like get in the zone, and you've got to get in the zone and find your rhythm and really up your game from in comparison to what you've just been doing. So yeah, to answer your question, it's a big difference from when you're coaching then going back into race mode. It's a wake up call, and you're almost like sort of question yourself, shit, can I still do this? And sometimes if I get a fast lad on with me, it puts a smile on my face when I can still gap them as and when I want. It puts a smile on my face to tell me I've still got it a little bit, you know. When you know you've got that, I'm nowhere near the edge of crashing, but I'm still able to pull a gap and show them the way to go when I want to or when I need to, you know.
No, that is, because I tell you what, the reason I ask, I got asked to do a little bit of coach. I've got my ACU coaching license for the tests, and I try and help people out in that, and I got asked to do a bit of coaching, and now I don't have a lot of short-term experience, and I've been given an opportunity to ride for DC Race and like New Roads team, and we're going to do Thundersport, and I'm thinking, do I get that extra bit of track time coaching, or will it slow me down to go and try and win races? And
no,
it's
if you when you say extra bit of track time, don't think coaching is going to give you track time and it's going to benefit you for your racing.
Right.
There's no way it will, because you're tiptoeing around coaching people. You ain't going to learn nothing. Right. You're not going to learn nothing about what your race bike's going to do when you're coaching anyone. You'll learn more in the first 5 minutes of when you're allowed to go flat out as fast as you can than what you ever are going to do in 1 or 2 days coaching somebody in novice or intermediate group.
Yeah.
So don't look at coaching
just like, you know, when you like talk about saddle time. It's just like, because like I'm a forester by trade, so me getting on a bike's on a circuit, I'm thinking, if I do, I'm not talking about full time, you know, doing the odd day, but no, that's a free bit of it. Hopefully that's free. Hopefully don't send me an invoice.
It's totally different, is what I'm saying. Is it's not a benefit to you. Don't get me wrong. If you're going on a track day coaching where you're going to get a little session by yourself and you can go out and go flat out
Yeah.
and get your head down, then you're going to be in a benefit. But if you're just coaching, it's not. You're not really gaining anything.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Got quick messages from our patrons. We've got one from David Young. Remember seeing Steve racing an S1000RR against James May on Top Gear years ago? How did that come about, and what was the experience like?
You know what? I still get asked this question quite a bit, because obviously it's not often bikes go on Top Gear, is it? And it was quite a unique thing for me, which I enjoyed doing back in the day. So it was BMW UK asked me to do it, and it was because my bike was a standard road bike, as in standard engine, although it had the Superbike ECU on, but it was no electronics or anything. And we went there to the aerodrome proving ground where they have the track and all the rest of it, and it was me against the Ariel Atom V8, and obviously we were doing time trials, and then we didn't actually do a race, like together, like a proper race, because it would be quite dangerous if like
you'll lead the
car's trying to duff me up the inside and I cut in the front of him and stuff. So, but what we did do, we done some laps filming together where like it was staged, where I'd overtake the car into such and such a corner, the car had overtaken me there, so it was all done safely. And they made out it was James May driving the car. It wasn't. It was Tiff Nadell, and Tiff was literally sideways in this V8 Ariel Atom, and I'm not kidding. It was the width of this trailer. I had to stay behind the car, and I just thought to myself, if he spins that car now, I'm straight into the side of him and over the top. Anyway, to answer this question, the bike was night and day faster than the car. It was like easily like 2 or 3 seconds faster than what the car was, because my team that were there with me were timing the car and timing the bike when they give us like half an hour to go out for me to learn the track and get my head down, do some fast laps, and then same with the car, and then we done messing about with filming and stuff. And the bike was never going to win on a car show, was it? They're not going to. A car show's never going to let let all the car enthusiasts,
I heard a thing
pee
the
on
other day
them
about,
But the truth's out, kids.
do you know when
Exactly.
when the Tesla first they made the first sort of model of the Tesla dropped one off at Top Gear, and when they dropped the Tesla off, the guy from Tesla seen a script, and they had a script of what was going to happen, and the Tesla was battery was going to run out, and it was going to have a problem with something else, and they were like, hang on, like that's making us look like and they're like, no, it's just entertainment.
Yeah,
but people watch Top Gear and they sort of
right.
buy cars off.
Well, I'm glad you've said that, Chrissy, because what happened that day, so we turned up with my Evo bike, which was a standard engine with the Motec ECU, slick tyres in, which is what we use in Superbike, and the full Superbike chassis, so it had proper Brembo brakes and all the rest of it. So the team pulled my bike out and got the tyre warmers on, tyre pressures done, and all the rest of it. And I didn't understand what was going to happen. I just was told I'm racing against one of them. And then I found out on the day it was James May, and James was there smoking cigarettes and all the rest of it, like a scruff like he is. And then they come to us literally an hour before we were going to start filming, and said, you can't use that. And so Bernie, my team manager, said, oh, what do you mean? He said, well, it's got full slick tyres on, it's not road going. It needs to be a road bike, so it needs road tyres on. So I said to Benny, I'm not riding that. I'm not riding that around this track on proper road tyres. I said, have we got any stock tyres, super stock tyres with us? And Richard Cooper's my teammate at the time, we had some of his super stock tyres in the van. So I said, put them on, that'll do. And then, so I had to ride a road bike, full road bike. So they wouldn't let me ride the race bike, which it was supposed to be designed about.
Yeah.
I had to ride a stock road bike with indicators, but I said I'm not riding it on the road tyres that I had on it, on this road bike, what BMW had brought. So I said, just put the super stock race compound tyres on, I'll be fine with that. So that's what we've done. But Bernie, my team manager, was spitting feathers because he had the bike sold the week before the filming, and he kept hold of the bike or put it all back to race trim or wherever, ready for the filming. And then they said, right, an hour before filming, we don't need the bike, ride that road bike there instead. So, but then when you looked at the Ariel Atom, it had like full Öhlins suspension, Brembo calipers like that big. It was like the trickiest race car with a reg plate on for the road, V8, and I was like,
time to pull the pin.
Yeah.
One more question from Mike Orton. It's a long one, so I'm not sure how much we'll get through. It says, Steve's also a Superstock 1000 champion. In what way are the bikes different now from when he was riding? What are the technological improvements which he would keep? And conversely, are there any which he thinks the series would be better without, e.g. traction? He does quite a bit of track and training. Has he ever had anyone on any of these days who he's thought, yes, they are a bit extra special and will go on to be very successful? We'll go for the Superstock things.
Sorry, who was that? Who's
Mike
that?
Orton.
Mike
Orton.
Orton.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was somebody else who I thought I might know from one of the tracks. Yeah, okay. So to answer that question, so the bike, Superstock bikes back when I was racing, like the Blade had zero electronics on, no traction
full
control.
whiskey, off you go.
Yeah, so it was all down to that. And I mean, if I over revved my bike on the downshift into the corners and the back wheel locked up, I'd have to feather it on the two fingers on the clutch.
Slip the clutch.
So to stop it locking up, you go into like hairpins like Druids at Brands, and
I've seen a picture of you backing it in.
yeah,
on the
places
clutch.
like Lodge at Oulton Park, where you go in and you're like screeching to get the bike stopped, and the back wheel, you've kicked the gear out, say back to second gear, but way further back where you should have, because you're trying to get the bike stopped, and you're just controlling it on your two fingers and the bike sideways. And that's how we used to. I'd never ever touched the rear brake in my life, but whenever any pictures of me backing it in is all done on the clutch, just to disengage the back wheel ever so slightly when it was backing in. But obviously now with the bikes, with the electronics, with the auto blippers, back shifting the gears, you don't even use the bloody clutch, do you, going down the gears on your bikes now? They're so easy to ride and technically, faster and safer for you guys, because there was times when I didn't always get it right. You know, I'd be backing it in. For example, I remember one time at Croft in 08, I went in, backed it in sideways, and I went back one gear too many, and I was holding on the clutch, and it didn't frame, bang, pinged me right over the top. But with your bikes now, with the auto blipper on, when you go down the gears, for those that don't know, you just close the throttle, hit the brakes, and don't touch the clutch at all. You just, on the gear stick, just go bam bam, knock the gear stick down. The bike automatically blips and does the nice smooth downshift, like automatic, isn't it? For you now. And obviously it's lovely for me coaching on my brand new ZX10 now off Kawasaki, and I go out, leave the pit lane, I don't even touch the clutch till I get back, because it's a lot less effort.
Are you a road or race shift?
I was always race shift when I raced.
Aye, just when you're coaching.
But I can use either, because obviously whenever I used to go out on a dirt bike, or you're straight back to road change, aren't you? But the electronics, which is all the technology passed down to stock from Superbike and MotoGP, is obviously all the improvements that they've been developed, you know, at that level, filtered down, and it's brilliant for you guys, because ultimately it makes you faster and safer without, you know, there's one thing having a rider coach showing you all the bits and bobs of you know, how to go fast in terms of you as a rider, but then on your bike, when you've got all these electronics, you can have too much of like traction control, or too much anti-wheelie, or have your ABS turned on, and all these things that could hold you back, as you've played about with it a lot, I know, haven't you? So yeah, but for me, 2013, there was a bit of traction control on, but I used to hate it because I wasn't used to it.
Yeah.
And the traction control then wasn't quite as good as what it is now, so I just used to leave it off.
That's the same as like anti-wheelie's been on bikes for years, but up until pretty much this last year, I've always had mine totally turned off because it wasn't good enough to aid the rider. So it maybe for somebody like that was riding on the road that just didn't want the bike to wheelie, great, but for racing it was a disadvantage, where it's only now it's becoming that good. Same with the traction, that you can actually, because like even in 2017 when a lot of the time I would totally turn all my traction off and my anti-wheelie and would just be riding it like that, where the latest sort of generations of the bikes, the
game stepped up, hasn't it?
They are getting good.
The game changer for me in terms of electronics now is the auto blipper. Like that,
and it doesn't matter how hard you hit the paddle, is it?
So you can backshift a gear too many, it will not lock that back wheel up.
It feels weird going on an older bike and using the clutch now because you're so used to just not using it, aren't you?
Well, it's so alien. When you get on an older bike now and you've got a downshift or downshift using the clutch, it's such an effort, isn't it? Whereas on all the latest bikes now, these auto blippers are fantastic.
Well, I'm very. I ride several bikes in the season. You get on a classic bike and you think, you watch a lot of lads hop back on the classic bikes, and people have got their umbrella out to catch the valves that are going to hit them off the head. You've just got to think about what you're doing. It's mad.
Well, I think that's. Have you got any other questions?
I was just about to say, is there any? Well, I know you're not going around banging on people's door, but is there space for people to get in touch with you and work with this season?
Yeah, thanks, Dom. For anybody wanting any track day coaching, if you want to check my website out, which is www.stevebrogansuperbikeschool.co.uk/TSB. My contact number's on there, my email. Give us a shout. The dates are limited, which I've had to pre-book this year because of COVID and the track days have been selling out so fast. I've had to book spaces on the track days for myself and my clients.
Yes.
So if you book via my website or you give me a call if you have any questions, the price on my website, which is $795 for the day, that includes your track day fee as well. So there's no extra on top of that. And yeah, I know it's a lot of money. It's £800, but it costs me a lot of money to be there and obviously have my bike, and I've got to pay a track day fee to get on there as well to coach you. So, but the way I've basically made it £200 cheaper this year for people rather than last year is I'll coach 2 1-to-1 people on the same day. So I'll generally have 1 1-to-1 rider in the novice group and 1 in the intermediate group. So, and what I'll say to any fast group riders, if you want coaching, just book one of the spaces in the intermediate group, because even though you're a fast group rider, it doesn't mean that I can't still coach you the same level in the intermediate group. It just, I personally choose to not coach in the fast group because there's so many hooligans out there in the fast group that it's so dangerous. I've been clipped many a times, and it's me putting you in a safer position to coach you, and it's easier for you to take everything that I've got to show you and tell you at a little 10%, 20% backed off, and then we can introduce the speed, but we can still go fast. That's not a problem. But check my website out, or give us a call, guys. If
opportunities in the BSB paddock, if there's any we'll get a lot of competitors listening to this. If they want to work with you, is it the same way? Just get in touch. They'll never have your number, man. They'll be like,
to be honest, Tom, it's not really. It's not something that I'm sort of out there advertising. I'm already committed to one young rider at every BSB this year, and sort of I'm committed to him, young James Bull, for the rest of the season. And so that's me.
That'll save people pestering you. That's
but thanks anyway. So I'm committed to him for the rest of the season at all the BSB races.
Cool.
But definitely, if anybody needs any help for next year or beyond, give us a shout.
And there we go. You're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all Steve Brogan?
Yeah, all Steve Brogan 17 on most of my social medias, Twitter and Instagram.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time here today and nice to see all the family and everything. It's always good to see Tiggs and the kids.
Cheers, guys, and best of luck to you, mate, this year. I'll be rooting for you as always from home or at the track, hopefully, if I'm going to be there working.
Yeah, brilliant.
And to you, Dom, as well, with whatever you venture to do this year.
Thank you very much. You as well. This is all
always
good.
a pleasure listening to you both.
Oh, thank you. Well, big thanks, as always, to our patrons and to our sponsor, Colchester Kawasaki, and we'll catch up with you next week. Cheers. Thanks.
Cheers, Steve. See you in a bit.
Click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.